Welcome to the Strategy Sherpa Show, a series of organic discussions between hosts David Chavez and a variety of notable business leaders centered around their most significant failures and how they handled those challenges, so listeners can learn from their most teachable moments and apply the lessons to their organizations. Now, here's your host, David Chavez.
Hey everyone, this is David Chavez, the Strategy Sherpa, and I have an amazing guest today. You're going to be very excited to listen to this conversation. I have Anne Whelan with us, and I know many of you may not know Anne, but she's pretty amazing. She actually is on the board of directors of the Bank of Canada. She lives in Newfoundland, and I know I'm not saying that correctly, Anne. You can correct me to say it correctly. How do you say it correctly? Because there's a Canadian way of saying it.
Yeah. Yes, which is, being from here, I think I get to say this is the way. So it's Newfoundland, and the way to come here is understand Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So that's how we help people learn. Thanks for having us, David. It's great.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit on me, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh.
But in the meantime, I'll let everybody know. So Anne owns several companies while she's maybe checking her internet connection there. She also has sat on, like I said, she sits on the Bank of Canada board. She's also sat on the board of Newfoundland Labrador Oil and Gas Industry Association. She's also found on the Newfoundland Power Board. And so she's been on a lot of boards and councils. She's has a holding company where she has several different companies in her portfolio. And Anne, why don't you just share with with the guests some of these companies if you're back with us? Okay, Anne. All right. All right. Well, I think we lost Anne, but while we're waiting to get Anne back, let me go ahead and talk a little bit about Assured Strategy and some of the things that we're doing. On October the 19th, we have a webinar. Is your efficiency costing you money? And what we're going to do is be going over how to make your business a little more efficient, so that you can get your money back from your company. A lot of times people have money buried all over in their company that's being wasted into inefficiency. And this webinar will really go into that. It's a great time for that too, because everybody's having a little bit of cash challenges with the inflation out there, and then sort of the economy starting to turn a little bit. Then on the 26th of October, we have how to build your accountability through meeting rhythms. And you're back. I'm just going over some of our webinars. Glad to have you back. So how to build your accountability through meeting rhythms and how to do your meetings a little bit better. And my partner, Kane Pekovic, is doing that. Then don't forget, November 9th, we have quite a few attending to Accountability Could Be Easy, but workshop. And it's basically how to take your time, your wasted time due to the lack of accountability in your company, and make it more productive. And then Warren Sager, one of our coaches, is doing the 7 ways to football knowledge can increase your business success on November 14th. And then Warren and I are actually doing a scaling up workshop in Dallas on this December the 6th. And please get on our website, assuredstrategy.com/events. And Anne, we were talking about you before we lost you there for a second, but you seem to be back. So.
Yeah, I think I'm okay, David. So we had a power bump in the hotel that I'm at, and it just took that 1 second of switching over to UPS, I guess, and I lost everything. So great to be back. It's understand Newfoundland, in case anybody, I don't know if you heard that part or not. And it's you just mentioned the scaling up workshop, and that's actually how you and I met. I wanted to do one, and decided to combine it with a trip to California, and there you were. So it was great.
Yeah. Well, and that was quite a while ago, probably about, gosh, I would say probably 6 to 8 years ago, maybe even longer. I don't
Yeah,
know.
probably 10 years ago now, I think. Close
Oh
to it.
yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
it's quite a while.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about your background, because it's so diverse, and it's like you
Sure.
truly are an entrepreneur and you're truly an amazing business person. And so why don't you share a little bit of your background just so people get know who you are?
Okay. So I live in Newfoundland, Canada, which is way out on the east coast of Canada, much closer to Europe right now than I am to you, David.
Uh-huh.
And other than a few years of living in California, I've lived here most of my life. So I started out, graduated from university, kind of floated around, wasn't really sure what to do, and had an English degree, and really wasn't into the whole idea of business all that much. I worked in kind of community development work, and then I decided at a certain point, okay, I got to pay a mortgage here and look after a kid and do all those things. So, I want to make sure that I can do that. And I got really attracted to the idea of businesses that were in a care. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Fine.
You can hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, you broke
Um,
up a little bit for a second, but you're fine. You're back.
oh, okay. Yeah, there's a little bit of thunder and lightning here, so I think it might be affecting the internet just a tad. Anyhow, so yeah, I started in a home care kind of business, and decided to do some work in supporting children and youth in residential care. So bought a bunch of homes and did some group homes, and really always focused on quality and community as part of that. Over the years, I mean, you talk about, you said quite gracefully a minute ago, that I
Hey,
was a
hey, hey, hey,
good
Ann.
business
Hey,
person. But I
Ann.
would say a better descriptor would be experienced business person, because I've done some very poor things. Yeah.
Hey, why don't you turn your video
Can
off,
you hear me
and
okay?
yeah,
All
can
right.
you, yeah, and maybe that'll help.
Yeah. Sure.
People
Okay.
just have to stare at me
Um,
instead.
yeah. Oh, well, you could smile more, David. That's what they tell you, right?
Yeah, of course.
Let me know if it's better. Okay.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, great. So anyway, it's the business has grown. We've set up a home care agency in Florida. We've done a number of things, that did work out. So a lot that didn't work out as well. It's a bit of a challenging economy here from time to time. But I think the consistent theme is here. If there's one thing that I'm pretty proud of, is that we've always tried to, use the core values to guide how we've run our set of organizations. And so things come and things go. We're probably about, approaching $60 million in annual revenue now. The margin is not where it needs to be. We're recovering, we're a service delivery, healthcare service delivery primarily. That was really tough through COVID. And so, we're working our way back from that. What's exciting about where we are right now is I've got a fantastic leadership team. I'm transitioning over the next year or so to be chair of and CEO of the Holdco only. And so the largest operating companies have different leaders now than me, which is quite a relief at this point in my life. I just turned 55. And but I'm still really excited about what's next. And so we've worked a lot in the last couple of years on innovation and new service models, and using automation and AI and all of those things to support better service delivery, primarily in that community healthcare space. And we've got a partnership with a tech company where we're developing software to help people discharge earlier from hospital and all of those kinds of things. So lots of cool stuff happening. I think
Very good.
probably the one thing I would say at this point, David, is it feels like, I guess I'm about 23 years into running what is now this group of businesses. And it feels like we are, when you use all of those models about base camps and BHAGs and all of those things, it feels like we got to a BHAG that we sort of established and we didn't get a new one going right away, but I feel like there's a new one now and there's a whole new group of people to climb that mountain, which is really good.
Oh, that's great. And so you're basically coming out of the pandemic and reinventing yourself like you've always done several times over your career. And your companies are doing about 60 million, don't have the margins yet, but it's doing a lot better now. And any new businesses that came out of the pandemic?
Yeah, it's funny. So they say, that like, in crisis there is opportunity, and
Yeah, that's
I've always believed that, and but that was pretty tough to swallow about 2 weeks into the pandemic when I literally thought, at what point do we all go down together? Do I need to try to save a leadership team here and lay other people off? And I really was just not sleeping, worrying about all of those things. And because like those were not decisions you prepare yourself for, like that kind of catastrophic decision, but I knew I had to make it. And, then there were some government programs that helped ease some of that pain, but that took a little while to get established. But I thought, okay, well, if not this, if we never get back to providing care out in people's homes, because that's what we were doing. And that was it was not happening in the middle of the pandemic. What else are we good at? And I actually stayed up one whole night with flip chart paper and wrote, okay, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, like not as a, planning exercise, as a survival exercise. Like, what do we got here? And it was really kind of cool. So then I got 3 or 4 people together on the Zoom calls that we all got used to using and said, okay, guys, this is what we got to do. And so we came up with 2 or 3 things we could do, none of which were even, active businesses anywhere in our market at the time. And we used we saw government struggling, and we've always been able to help the government respond to some of their community healthcare needs. And we saw some new ones coming out. And so we ended up getting a contract to distribute some of this pandemic related supplies, because we knew where everybody was in the whole province because we were out providing care. That grew. A bunch of things happened. We took a couple of big swings. We were lucky enough to get a couple of them, and that is done really well. And right now we're in the middle of a bid process for a 10-year contract that is, probably double in scope to the one we have right now. So that's pretty exciting. We started a whole innovation program. We took 7 of our leaders. We did the Oxford Innovation Program, which is an 8-week program. And we started an innovation hub called Branch that we're developing software and technology to support some of that community service delivery. That's, one of the last places typically that, governments invest money is in, community-based organizations. So we're trying to figure out, because we learned during the pandemic how much you rely on all of those things, and there's no information backbone for them. So we're trying to build a lot of that. So pretty cool stuff.
Hey, let me jump up in here, Anne, because we got to take a break, but and we have pretty hard stops. So we'll take a break and we'll come back and talk a little bit about that innovation center a little bit. Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez with Anne Whelan, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hey, everybody, this is David Chavez. We're back, and we're with Anne Whelan, and she just dropped a bomb on us right before we went on our break, and she said she had opened an innovation center. And I love it because that's where we grow entrepreneurs, and she's interested in helping other entrepreneurs grow now. And so, Anne, so you took your office and created a whole innovation center in the bottom floor, and you're in St. John's, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, and if you've never been to Newfoundland,
Excellent, David.
Okay.
2 thumbs up.
Okay. I'm sorry for all the people in Newfoundland listening and know me, because I apologize in advance about that, because I know how particular you are about that. As far as if you've never been to St. John's, incredible place to visit. In beautiful, beautiful place. I even went to Fogo Island when I was there a couple of times. And if you've never been to Fogo Island, you ought to look that up and try to go one time in your life. It's pretty amazing. But Anne, so you're on this innovation center, and tell us a little bit about it and what some of the successes are with it already.
Right, sure. Well, the first thing I guess I should tell you is that it's in a building that is over 150 years old, and it survived two great fires. So the city was burnt, the downtown part of the city had two big serious fires that, made tens of thousands of people homeless, and that house survived both of them. So I think it's a great metaphor for, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Anyway, so our innovation center is called Branch, and it is, we had a lot of great ideas, and we used to always say, wouldn't it be good if, this or that or the other thing, and if they did this, whoever they is. And, I guess the other thing that drove that sort of innovation was always one of our core values. We always had, find a better way. And we found that, we were finding a better way, but we weren't always, taking that through to how we could benefit from it and monetize it, and commercialize it. So there was a lot of thinking around how we could, what the next phase of our organization would look like. So we said, all right, we got to get this innovation thing going. We weren't sure how. We did that course, and we said, okay, we're going to start with some internal innovation. And then we quickly realized that we could change a lot of, incremental things quickly, but those sort of disruptive ideas took a little more firepower. So had to commit a fair chunk of budget to, putting this together for a couple of years. And at the same time, we invited partnerships with entrepreneurs that we knew they could use our help and we could use their help. And so we have a couple of entrepreneurs in place. One who does a specialized payroll and accounting service for people who hire their own care workers. And so they're doing some really cool things there. And another one is about appointment alerts and reminders and ways to use AI tools to make that more likely that people will attend their appointment with all the right stuff done. And, sounds pretty basic, but those are things that fix, their healthcare solutions for sure, right? And they support individuals in the community as opposed to the acute care hospital system. So, and there's a bunch of other things at the ideation phase or whatever. So we allow our employees who have an idea to work in the innovation center part of the time, and we support them. We've got 3 engineers on staff there who can put together some software stuff. So we're, we got a bunch of ideas on the wall right now around non-emergency medical transportation using community volunteers and cool stuff. Meals on Wheels to utilize, all of these Lions clubs and things that are around communities that are never used the way they were. So could we put some money in their pockets by having them run a Meals on Wheels program? And then that actually helps seniors and helps long-term care systems be more sustainable. So lots of really cool things happening, David, and, tied That's right great. Back to core purpose too. So, I think it's why people have found the energy to do it, because it is
what's your purpose?
Unlocking potential in our people and our communities.
I love it. So, I love it. Yeah. You've had that for quite a while now too.
We have.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So the purpose of the Strategy Sherpa show in its current form is for us to get into some of the things that maybe you didn't do well. And as an entrepreneur, one of the things I've always loved about you, because I've known you for a while now, is that you're so candid about stuff you've done incorrectly. And you're so willing to share it with people because you want not to judge you, but to really help them learn to do better, right? Because you have a big heart in that way. You want to help people do better in their business. And so why don't you share with us one of the things that you struggled with as an entrepreneur a little bit?
So, David, if you're one of those people who's always on that journey of self-improvement, that the universe keeps sending you the lesson until you learn it, right? And I think that's true in business too. So for everybody out there who's listening, if you have the same problem keep coming back to you, it means you haven't learned the lesson yet. So, that has happened to me repeatedly in different areas. And, you know, my husband says to me, and, you know, one of the best things about you is that you always see the best in people. And one of the worst things about you is that you always see the best in people. And because you overlook, you know, so, so, you know, David, I think there's a dozen examples of that I could give. And trying to, you know, run an organization tied to your core values, tied to unlocking potential in people, means you're always going to, you know, apply the benefit of the doubt kind of thing. But,
Yep.
You know, there's places where you still need to have the backbone to make the right call. And that's something that I've struggled with, you know, a couple of times. So I'll sort of set the context for you a little bit in terms of, so I really, I guess, you know, fundamentally, without telling the whole story up front, you know, I should have made the decision that a couple of really important senior people needed to leave my organization. I didn't make the call. And I don't want any of the listeners here to think, you know, how when you go to a job interview and you say, you know, what is your weakness? And somebody says, oh, well, I'm such a hard worker. I don't give myself a break. And so really, you're not saying it's a weakness. And so I'm not saying that was my mistake was that I should have fired somebody, because everybody can nod and say that. But my mistake was that I let my own ego, if you will, and really my own set of, you know, I think it was a bit of weakness on my part in being so afraid to deal with the things myself without those other people there that I trusted and who had at, you know, point violated the trust, that I was kind of afraid to let them go. That's the mistake. It's, I mean, the other people made mistakes too, but really, you know, as the leader, as the entrepreneur, that was really the mistake that I thought I would talk to you about today. So,
okay. So what your mistake is what you're saying is that you didn't see needing to let somebody go at the time when you needed to let them go.
That's right.
Okay.
That is right. I tried to explain it away. I tried to make it not be true in the way that, you know, that it would still work for me. But, and I can tell you the moment when I made the decision otherwise, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I think, you know, in retrospect, it seems so black and white, but it truly wasn't. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. So
okay,
we went
go ahead. I'm sorry. You're just going to go into your story.
All right. So we went, you know, my company grew very quickly. You know, I guess I started around 2003, and around 2007 through 10, you know, we doubled 3 years in a row. So we went from 2 million to 4 million to 8 million to 16 million to $20 million in a 5-year period. And so, you know, I had like one person doing bookkeeping when I started. And so trying to incrementally add people, like I was at a point where, you know, I did not have the, you know, the senior office infrastructure to manage, you know, that size of a business that was done, let's say, you know, $30 at a time, revenue wise, right? So it was a lot of transactions to support. So I was in the peak oil boom of Newfoundland and Labrador, and it was really hard to hire anybody. So I advertised for a chief financial officer. I hired somebody from Saskatchewan, another part of Canada. And I relocated them. I did all that. And I knew that they weren't right after a few months, like just not right. And so before their 6-month probationary period was over, I walked in the office. I did what I needed to do. I gave that person relocation money again. It was an expensive mistake, but I had, what I guess my point in telling you this is I'd already exited one chief financial officer. And then I hired another one who turned out to be really good. And we were about the same age. We became fast friends, hired an executive assistant around the same time. And all three of us, you know, kind of worked in like 2 offices next to each other, and then the, you know, executive assistant there, and lots of cool stuff happened. And that was around the time I met you, David, and you would have met both of those individuals as well. And so at the time, then, you know, the oil industry kind of crashed. We had done a number of acquisitions, including some in health and safety related spaces that were more tied to workplace. And so all of that was falling to pieces. it was really challenging. It was tough for me to do it, by myself. And I had a lot of new team members who just didn't kind of have the experience of difficult times. Government went to contract for a big chunk of our work, and it was kind of an all or nothing approach. And so, that CFO was really helpful in all of those things and critical to it. Yeah, I don't want to say helpful, critical to it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
But you not only had the CFO in a critical role, your assistant being so critical to you being as effective as you can be. So the three of you together were like a team because you were doing all these acquisitions at the time. You had all these companies that were starting to have some problems. You knew that you could turn them around. You just needed the right people around you. And so you brought these people in. And let's continue this conversation on the other side of the break, because we got to take a break right now, and we can get into a little bit what led. So we sort of understand what led to this situation. It's like you had a bookkeeper, you needed more financial sophistication now that the tide was starting to turn a little bit. And so you went out to try to hire the CFO to provide some of that. And then this really good assistant too. Is that correct? Okay.
That's it.
All right. So let's take a break. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have webinars and some live events too. Get on assuredstrategy.com events and we'll take a look at those, and we'll be right back in just a moment. And I'm David Chavez. We're at Strategy Sherpa Show, and we're talking to Anne Whelan, and she has just explained to us that she had the powerhouse team. There were three of them that were really trying to take their company through a little bit of a downturn in their providence due to oil and gas starting to decrease a little bit because Newfoundland and St. John's are very reliant on the oil and gas industry, right? Because there's a lot of drilling offsite. And so why don't you just pick it up from there, Anne, and share with us what happened that led to this situation?
Sure. David, as often happens in workplaces, these two folks started to have a personal relationship, and, they were both, I knew their families, we went to each other's houses at Christmas time and all that. And, not to put too fine a point on it, but, they ended up having an affair. And I found out about it. And about this because I found out about it the night before we were supposed to start our annual planning. And had to walk in the room the next day. And I even have like a little shell-shocked feeling just talking about it now. Like like that nervousness comes back because I was like, I don't know what to do. And these are the two people I rely on the most. And so I thought, the first thing I thought was, I will try to be a more progressive, new agey boss. These things happen. Long as everybody's operating in their core values, this will be fine. But, without trying to lay a lot of blame on, what they chose to do, situations like that are very disruptive to your company, because people find out, people know, their families didn't know. It was really awkward. And, if you're perpetuating that kind of thing, what you permit, you promote, then you start to see all kinds of other offside behaviors in the organization. How could I call people on stuff when I wasn't calling? So, and I really, really struggled with that. I mean, we all celebrated New Year's Eve together. And so it was really, really difficult. And, we had this daycare business that we bought as part of an expansion plan. And of course, then, when the oil sort of slowed down, the area that we had it in was in an area where there's a lot of people who worked in that industry. And so there was, there's lots of like the shrinking demand. And I had actually given the CFO shares in that company as part of a retention strategy. And so, he was supposed to take on the responsibility of really trying to keep an eye on that one and keep it going. And as it turns out, like, some of the basic things just weren't getting done, like not at all. And, so I had a few of the talks that you need to have with people and sat them, all the things that you think would be the right thing to do. And then I made something that I'm really not proud of. I made the decision that I should, my EA, I had moved into another role that was not directly in the office. Like I moved the problem rather than dealt with the problem. And then I found out, and she was going through her own things in her life. And I found out that she wasn't going to work all the time and all that. And so I fired her. And that was not the right thing to do, really. I mean, it may have been as part of the right thing to do, but you don't blame one person for a problem that two people are involved in either, right? And so I did that, and I'm sorry about that. And that one, was tough. And but I tell you what, I was backbone. I had fired one CFO already. I knew it would be very hard after that, Yeah.
We're losing you a little bit, so may want to turn off the video while you tell this part.
Turn off my video again. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that's better, David. So, I was really afraid to, make a decision around the CFO because, how was I going to manage through all of this by myself? And hiring people takes time, and there wouldn't have been a lot of confidence in the organization, having let this person go without anybody understanding why and all of that stuff. And it would have kind of outed some of that to families and everything. And I was so afraid, but I knew that we were failing miserably all over the place. And I went to this conference and I invited him to go with me. And it was about family business and how to grow family businesses and stuff. And it really was intended to be an opportunity for us to have a couple of those good conversations and say, okay, we got to sort this out one way or the other. And a retired general came in and spoke. And he told a story about joining a board, and he almost told the exact story that I just told you about what happened. And he said, once a person really, if they're that senior in your organization, that people can see them get away with what's a clear violation of trust, they will never trust the CEO again if you don't do something about it. And I remember sitting there and thinking, I know what I got to do. And it was heartbreaking. And and it was not easy to untangle because of the shares, because of the family issues, because of, severance requirements and all of those things, and the business state we were in at the time. And then I, had to get up and go to work kind of all by myself and figure all this out. And that was a really, really, really tough time. And it took me a long time to not feel personally hurt by that, and I dragged too much of it into the workplace, so everybody around me felt it too. And so I had to have that team learn to trust me again, and trust that if I put them in harm's way again, or I saw that happening, that I would act more timely and forcefully to do that. And so I always say it's the lesson in putting on your big girl panties, and people, but it's more than that, David. It is about understanding that fundamental trust that people need to have in their senior leadership team. And that is not just a policy playbook. That has to be right to the heart of, if I'm gonna have you have shares in this company with me, if I'm gonna have you be the right hand to the left hand kind of thing, then you have to have a level of trust and clear expectations and no-go zones. And we were so in a no-go zone, and I didn't know I couldn't get it back. I thought there was a way I could fix it. It was not mine to fix. I had to do something different. So, that was a lesson.
Yeah, I think that remembering back to this time, because I remember how much you struggled with this, and I really wanted to talk to the audience about the struggle really that you went through, because, look, these are two people's lives. It's up to them how they lead it. You're not trying to tell them how to lead their lives. But at the same time, you're trying to run a business, and that business is getting disrupted by this relationship, and this relationship is causing you problem. Then you go and you let the lady go, and you don't let the gentleman go. And it started having turmoil on you a little bit, because you felt like you were picking and choosing on that, sides on that. Is that sort of how you felt? I mean, I don't want to
Yeah.
put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was only after the fact that I felt I was picking sides. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
thought I was saving the most necessary part and getting rid of some of the problem. That's how I thought what I thought I was doing at the time. Looking
and,
back on it, I realized, that was pretty ethically wrong to do what I did. But at the time, I didn't realize that. It was like, okay, well, I can get a new EA, but I can't get a new CFO. So you got to go.
yeah.
And, that was what I did. And that was not right. But the turmoil was, I was really afraid I wouldn't be able to recruit somebody else. We weren't in a good financial position. So much stuff had been so poorly done for a year that it was like our numbers were not in good order.
So
It was
this guy was not doing his job.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So all this distraction distracted him from what he was doing. And this guy was fairly he was a great candidate for this
Oh,
job,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
And I know he didn't mean it to happen that way. So, when it's a person
Most
that
definitely.
this is not your finest hour, you are better than this, and you keep thinking they're going to come around. And so it was all of those things. It was not
Right.
somebody who was marginal before. It was someone who was excellent.
Right.
And, I kept thinking, okay, maybe they'll get this straightened out and we can move on from here. But I let that go too long. And, it was just ugly by the time it all went down. And I should have done the right thing earlier. And I think, it has taught me, though, to do things differently going forward without being harsher. I don't think I'm a more tougher boss. I just think I know when we're at the right end here. So
I think this is what a lot of leaders struggle with. It's like, how do I get the right team around me? And you're on this path where you're thinking, okay, I want to go from 20 to 60 million like you are now. And how do I get there with the people that I have? And then and then who do I need on my team? So you spend a lot of time and effort, because I remember how much time and effort you put into these people, getting them on board. And so your psyche is that you're bringing in the right people and you vetted them quite a bit. Is that fair?
That's true. I did.
Yeah, yeah. And then they show up, and again, I think you said this really, really well. Their intention wasn't to come in and start this affair. These are
No.
things that happen, right? And then you were willing to look past it, but then you had to make sure that they were both doing their jobs, which then you found out they weren't, right? I mean, I remember the lady, you had found that she wasn't showing up to work, and she was actually running one of your companies. Isn't that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And then she wasn't showing up to work sometimes. And then the financials weren't getting done. And so let's talk about it on the other side, what some of the valuable lessons you've learned from this situation happening and how you've handled those going forward, because I think all of us have been there at one time or another. We want to do the right things. We also want to recognize that people have privacy and that their personal lives are theirs. But when it started affecting your business and what was going on, that was the harder part for you. And I definitely remember having that conversation right before the night of that retreat, where you had discovered that this was going on. So let's come back and talk about that a little bit, and then we'll conclude the show. But thank you very much. And this is a Strategy Sherpa show with David Chavez and Anne Whelan, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hey, everybody, this is David Chavez, and we're back. And I just want to tell you, if you've been listening up to now, pretty crazy story so far. And then if you haven't been, you may want to go back and listen a little bit on this topic. But Anne, so you have this situation happen. You have two people that you loved and you trusted a lot, violated a lot of that for you. And you ended up having to get rid of both of them. And tell us what happens after that. Like, how have you handled, because, look, affairs are a part of running a company. It just happens, right? And so
Right.
I think that it's pretty natural for those things to end up happening. But tell me how you've handled some of these situations going forward.
Yeah, David. And, there was a sort of a growing maturity on how I handled all of that. One of the things that I did right away was kind of have a proactive disclosure policy around that kind of stuff so that you have to tell. And
Right.
there's some rules around all that. So that was, the sort of housekeeping kind of things that I did right off the bat. We had a core value of fun in our organization, and we still do. But
Right.
I put some more work into defining what was fun to make sure that we weren't over the edge in terms of the kind of jokes that people told in the office, the sort of things that were okay and not okay. And it doesn't mean that it became like the Handmaid's Tale or anything, but it was just a little bit more on course that you would expect from a mid-sized kind of company. So I did some of those things. But where I think I really matured as a leader was starting to understand what's my job in the culture and the values of this organization. And it was that general didn't talk about what the CFO should have done. It's what the CEO should have done when they found out was the problem with the organization. And so I had to learn that it was my job to teach everyone in the company that we all have to follow the core values, and that if you're not living up to it, sure, we're going to give you the opportunity to improve or change your ways. But when you really violate values, different than, accountability or work that you had to do, it's hard to come back from that. And sometimes that is a showstopper. And so I have had to, since that time, make that decision for different reasons, but always a violation of core values in one way or another. And I've been, unimpeachable on how I've dealt with that. So now everyone knows in this organization, there is an accountability on you to live those core values. And right through my management group, you get challenged on it if you're not quite living up to it. And if you do something that's really egregious, depending how it works, we're going to have a conversation about that. And it might mean that you don't, you can't be at that organization anymore. So I had something similar happen with, a couple people on an HR team, which is also at a Christmas party kind of thing. And one of them was definitely in a position of power over the other one. And we had to get on a flight the next day or the day after to go somewhere together. And we had the talk. And that talk was, this can never happen again. This is the apology that you need to write. This is what's going down. And this person had lived through all that other stuff. And she stared at the floor and said, "You're absolutely correct." And not an issue. We dealt with it, and it was told by Monday morning, everybody knew what had happened, not the details, but so I just knew how to handle it better, David. And what has happened is it's given me a confidence going into any situation that I know what I'm going to do if it starts to go off the rails. I'm going to handle it, as opposed to try to step back and see if it's going to be okay. Like that sort of, and even when you really need that person, you really can't have a person in your organization who is underperforming, who's at a senior level, and who is kind of not living up to what people need. They need the guidance from that person. If they can't do that, then they can't be there, no matter how much good work they've done in the past. I mean, yeah, if somebody is sick and they need to be off or something like that, that's a little bit different. But if you're gonna be in a senior leadership job, you got to show up. You got to show up. And so
you said a couple of things that you learned from it. So one, you're going to deal with these things much quicker this time, and not so since that situation took place probably about 10 years ago, any other situation that you've had like this that's come up, you've dealt with it right away. I think one of the things you struggled with at the time was like trying to figure out what should you do, right? And what you discovered you should pay attention to your core values and use them to guide you through the conversations you need to have.
Right. Absolutely.
Is that a fair way of saying it?
That would be exactly the way to say it. Yeah.
Okay. And because that's what I picked up from everything that you said is that, and then let me challenge you a little bit on this call with your core values. Share with everyone your core values.
Our community, they've changed a little bit in the words, but it's essentially entrepreneurship, community, action, integrity, and fun.
Okay. All right.
So,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no. And so we have a bunch of descriptors under each of those, and it clearly would have told me what I needed to do. I just didn't do it.
Right, right. And that's what I was getting to. So like you had all these guidelines of behavior, and you knew what you needed to do. You were struggling with it. And so whenever you use the core values, it just makes those decisions pretty simple then, right? It's like it's
Well,
not, doesn't make it easy. It just makes it simple that you know what you need to do. It doesn't make it easy to have that conversation.
yeah, David, that's exactly right. And so I was looking for easy. I was looking for it not to be problematic to me, because the first thing that happened if I let the two of those people go in that situation is I had nobody in my, like, that was our executive office. That was it. And so then what do you do, Anne? And so like it was really, really quite challenging. The work, just getting the work done, for digging myself out of that hole was very, very challenging. But I felt so much better about myself and my leadership, not day one, but day 30 onwards, I would say, and I think the team started to trust that I was, when the chips were down, I would do the right thing for them and make sure they had a job and a place to go to work and all of those things. And so that is my job. And
yeah, I like to think about, like, when I think about these things, because you probably had about 100 people at that time. You feed probably 3 people from every one person you have, right? And so you had 300 people counting on you to eat. And these people may have been stopping some of that. But Anne, I wanted to thank you for coming on today. I appreciate everything that you said. I mean, I think these lessons are really valuable and you covered them really well. And I really appreciate you coming on. Don't forget, everybody, December the 6th, I will be doing a scaling up workshop in Dallas with my one of my coaching partners, Warren Sager. And Anne, thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate your candidness. And we are sharing during one of the breaks that when I asked you to come on the show and share something that you didn't do as well, you had said the same. We joked a little bit during the break. It's like, okay, I have a laundry list, a long laundry list of things I didn't do so well.
A whole season with you on that, David, a whole season.
Well, it's sort of funny because the older we get, the less we worry about our egos being damaged by these things. It's just part of growing, right? So what we're doing is trying to share with people so you don't make the same silly mistakes. Anne Whelan, thank you very much. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and we appreciate you coming and visiting us. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.